concludes all operations of the emergency alert system. All stations may now resume regular programming.
For expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy.
So, I have been meaning to look into the Aspen Institute for a while. This was actually a suggestion from a viewer, and we'll eventually get into the details surrounding them, but unfortunately that is not today. However, I did come across something from the Aspen Institute, and well, am I crazy, or is this crazy? So, with all the authoritarians at heart jumping on the statist bandwagon and cheering for government entities to regulate what you can see, hear, watch, and interact with, the Aspen Institute came out with some Orwellian suggestions. The Commission on Information Disorder. Yes, it's true, if you don't believe the establishment lies, well then you have a mental deficiency, a mental disorder, one that can only be rectified by government intervention. And you know, this is beyond Orwellian. This is how you get re-education camps and get locked away for being an original thinker. Anyway, and I quote, "The effort aims to identify and prioritize the most critical sources and causes of information disorder, and deliver a set of short-term actions and longer-term goals to help the government, the private sector, and civil society respond to this modern-day crisis of faith in key institutions." End of quote. So yes, basically, once they identify you are suffering from information disorder, you know, believing such things that, the government doesn't really have your best interest in mind, that they are hell-bent on depopulation, or euphemistically speaking, population control. Or let's say you believe that the government is filled with greedy, sociopathic, masochistic lunatics that subvert their political office for personal gain. Well, if that's the case, then the government, the private sector, and quote-unquote civil society will need to intervene and respond to your crisis of faith regarding the government. Yeah, that's insane. They're saying that the government, the private sector, and civil society will have to retrain you to reestablish your faith in the corrupt system. This is going to lead to re-education. And I have no idea how people that propose this stuff don't have a moment like this.
I don't,
Hans, are we the baddies?
Yes, you are. I have no idea how anyone could believe this is a good idea. Now anyway, there are 4 steps they want to take, but let's skip to number 3. And I quote, "How government, private industry, and civil society can work together in the short term to help protect underrepresented groups and engage disaffected populations who have lost faith in evidence-based reality." End of quote. Yeah, okay, so they need to engage with disaffected populations that have lost faith in, and I quote again, evidence-based reality. Now, I'm sorry to say, but the evidence actually points to a corrupt establishment that has absolutely no interest in maintaining fundamental human rights, constitutional rights, and actually have plans to subjugate the world under social credit scores, programmable money, and a new economic system that promotes economic slavery under the guise of environmentalism. Oh, and we shouldn't forget, evidence also supports the idea that a number of global leaders are engaged in criminal aspects of human trafficking, exploitation, and, well, evil proclivities, you know what I mean, a la Jeffrey Epstein. Or, we could mention the fact that shadow banking has exposed most of the elite as crooks. Crooks who launder tax money to special interest groups who then funnel that money back into campaigns for said politicians. Now I could go on and on, but they want to talk about evidence-based reality, huh? I mean, what are we even talking about? The evidence points to the fact that we are all under the thumb of criminals. The evidence points to the fact that we shouldn't blindly put our faith in any of these people. And no matter how hard they push the propaganda, no matter what authoritarian actions they take, the cat is out of the bag. Yes, digital communication systems have enabled everyone to see the truth. That is, if they so choose to do so. And the truth is that the people in charge are malevolent. They have lost sight of their morality and humanity. At least, in my opinion, I believe that is true. You could take any subject these days. If you look deep enough, you are going to find lies and manipulation. Lost faith in evidence-based reality. I mean, come on, can you believe the audacity of these bougie pricks? Anyway, speaking of our dystopian reality, let's talk about depopulation and their mixed messaging. So, the world's first artificial womb facility, EctoLife, could incubate up to 30,000 babies a year.
Introducing EctoLife, the world's first artificial womb facility, powered entirely by renewable energy. EctoLife allows infertile couple to conceive a baby and become the true biological parents of their own offspring. It's a perfect solution for women who had their uterus surgically removed due to cancer or other complications. With EctoLife, premature births and C-sections will be a thing of the past. EctoLife is designed to help countries that are suffering from severe population decline, including Japan, Bulgaria, South Korea, and many others. The facility features 75 highly equipped labs. Each state-of-the-art lab can accommodate up to 400 growth pods or artificial wombs. Every pod is designed to replicate the exact conditions that exist inside the mother's uterus. A single building can incubate up to 30,000 lab-grown babies per year. EctoLife allows your baby to develop in an infection-free environment. The pods are made of materials that prevent germs from sticking to their surfaces. Every growth pod features sensors that can monitor your baby's vital signs, including heartbeat, temperature, blood pressure, breathing rate, and oxygen saturation. The artificial intelligence-based system also monitors the physical features of your baby and reports any potential genetic abnormalities. The pods are equipped with a screen that displays real-time data on the developmental progress of your baby. These data are sent directly to your phone so you can track your baby's health from the comfort of your zone. The app also provides you with a high-resolution live view of your baby's development. A special section in the app allows you to watch a time-lapse of your baby's growth and share it directly with your loved ones.
So, okay, in one interview they say that they believe the EctoLife concept could replace natural birth in the future. And I quote, "A total of 75 functional laboratories can be found within the building, according to the press release. Up to 400 artificial wombs or growth pods can be housed in each cutting-edge laboratory. Every pod is made to be just like the conditions inside the mother's uterus," end of quote. So yeah, basically eugenics is in the process of going mainstream, once again. So we have things going on in Canada that are insane, where they are actively trying to get people to kill themselves. Mental health issues, homelessness, being poor, I mean, for the left, who's always trying to say that the Canadian health system is better, they quite literally convinced a woman to off herself because she couldn't afford access to treatment. For example, one lady asked for a stair lift, and the government said, why don't you just die instead? You see, that would be way, way better for us. A message from your government, just die already. They are so hell-bent on depopulation that it is rather unnerving. And on top of their lust for extinction, their messaging is all over the place, which I believe alludes to the fact that there is something more going on beneath the surface. Just for example, they continually say that overpopulation is going to be the end of us. And then they say in this video that due to massively declining birth rates, we need to explore factory farms for babies. And I quote, "EctoLife is designed to help countries that are suffering from severe population decline, including Japan, Bulgaria, South Korea, and many others," end of quote. So then, which is it? Too many people or birth rates are declining so much that we need to start growing babies in a lab? You can't have it both ways. And I don't know, maybe I'm missing something here. But if that's the case, then please let me know. However, things get worse, and I quote, "Every growth pod features sensors that can monitor your baby's vital signs, including heartbeat, temperature, blood pressure, breathing rate, and oxygen saturation. The artificial intelligence-based system also monitors the physical features of your baby and reports any potential genetic abnormalities." So, do you see that? Monitors the physical features of your baby and reports any potential genetic abnormalities. Now, what's really interesting to me is that they can monitor for genetic defects or suboptimal genetic traits. But, then what? What happens next? I don't know. Dystopian doesn't even do our reality justice anymore. As you can see in this photo here, there is little difference between the birthing pods and the assisted death pods. As I said, eugenics is going mainstream once again. And really this time, I think they're taking it to a whole new level. Now, of course, I know, we do get into a lot of moral questions related to genetic abnormalities and what exactly that means, but we won't get into that. I'm not going to try to pretend to be some moral authority. I don't know. but what I do know is that things get real murky real fast. As things get even worse. Again, yes, it's true, things do get worse from here. And that's because there is a tier list of different packages. So for the rich and famous, you can genetically engineer your baby, designer babies, humanity 2.0. And I quote, if you want your baby to stand out and have a brighter future, our elite package offers you the opportunity to genetically engineer the embryo before implanting it in the artificial womb. Thanks to CRISPR gene editing tools, you can edit any trait of your baby through a wide range of over 300 genes. By genetically engineering a set of genes, the elite package allows you to customize your baby's eye color, hair color, skin tone, physical strength, height, and level of intelligence. It also allows you to fix any inherited genetic diseases that are part of your family history so that your baby and their offspring will live a healthy, comfortable life free of genetic diseases. Say goodbye to the pain of childbirth and birth-related muscle contractions, end of quote. You know, they're creating two separate societies, two separate species. If you have the rich and powerful being able to alter hair color, eye color, physical strength, height, and level of intelligence, well, you're going to have a class of, I don't know, de facto gods, and then you're going to have the dirty peasants in the sewers. This is not good.
Now humans are developing even bigger powers than ever before. We are really acquiring divine powers of creation and destruction. We are really upgrading humans into gods. We are acquiring, for instance, the power to re-engineer life. Humans are now hackable animals.
You will own nothing, and you will be happy.
This is kind of the future we're getting into here. This is not good. It's a brave new world. Every dystopian concept put together into one society. That's what we're going to be. And it's going to be brutal.
Our bodies will be so high-tech, we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
You might ask yourself, can we get to be superhumans?
Anyway, I think this is going to backfire in spectacular fashion. Every one of these proposals, every one of these eugenicists, transhumanist, genetic engineering topics we talk about, it all leads to one decidedly dark place, and that is the removal of what it means to be human. They are altering the human experience, the human condition, altering the species itself. And personally, I just can't help but feel like we're losing touch with our humanity, losing touch with what it means to be human. And if things continue in this direction, between the genetic engineering, the designer babies, and the transhumanist tech such as Neuralink, well, by the time it's all said and done, humans will be an artificial construct, a part of the hive mind, and independent thought itself is going to be a thing of the past.
It is becoming possible to hack human beings and therefore also to manipulate human beings on an unprecedented scale. And we don't know how to deal with it. We really have no traditions about how to deal with it because it never existed before in history.
Now, okay, I came across a clip on Twitter, an old Samwise Gamgee movie based on Kurt Vonnegut's dystopian novel. And well, let's just check this out. It's only a couple minutes.
Well, they say the intelligence gene is the hardest one to wipe out. It can pop up after 3 or 4 generations. But with Elma being a little shortchanged on the intellectual side, I think their kids will be just fine.
Like with Wally and me. No matter how high they turned up his band, he could never get his grades down. But paired off with me, we've had absolutely average kids. Except, of course, for Elma here.
Well, I think the computer's doing a terrific job. I'll bet you by the next century there won't be a lick of difference between anybody on this earth.
Okay, so I'm sure you heard the line, and I quote, "Soon there won't be a lick of difference between anyone on the planet," end of quote. Yeah, that's basically where we're heading with all this technology. And the push for de facto thought police, the genetic engineering and designer babies, and of course the transhumanist tech. I mean, as we talked about previously, at some point in time, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years down the line, it doesn't really matter. At some point in time, this tech is going to be used by government, and they will manipulate the data going into your interface. With everything going on in the world right now, I have no idea how people expect otherwise. As Yuval Harari says, humans are now hackable. However, what I think is the most important question to ask, where exactly does the data stream end? And where does original thought begin? That's a question that I hope we find out before people start plugging in and tuning out. Because if they do that, well then, I don't know. Welcome to the hive mind, I guess. If you thought this phenomena was bad now, with just social media group mentalities, and of course the incessant need for validation, well, imagine what this tech is going to lead to. And no, I don't think I'm being unreasonable. So yeah, we have a lot of really big ethical and moral questions that we need to start asking, and now is the time to start talking about these things. When you scale out and look at our timeline, we all have to start thinking in the manner that these societal architects are thinking, long term. We have to start thinking 20, 30, 50, hell 100 years ahead, the same as they do. With the way things are trending scientifically and technologically, these proposals are going to be reality by 2050. So with this trend, as I said, scientifically and technologically, this transhuman technocratic AI world is becoming not only possible, but predictably implemented. And then from there, culturally, the acceptance of everything from merging humanity with machines to the continued pursuit of artificial sentience is becoming commonplace. And then, of course, politically, if the global architects get their way, the world will be engulfed in this corporatist global structure, inherently authoritarian. If you follow these trends, the picture it paints isn't good. But we have to start thinking about things long term. We have to start asking these really big questions. What kind of future do you want? What kind of future do you want for your kids, your grandkids? And really, the crazy thing is, this next question is becoming more and more relevant, as absurd as it sounds to some of you. But we have to start asking ourselves what we see humanity becoming in the next 100 years or so. And really, should we be seeking to dictate our own evolution, merge with technology, altering our species forever? What protections are we going to have in place to remain independent? Maintain our independent thought? What safeguards are we going to have against government intrusion on these implanted technologies? What are the limits that corporations are going to have regarding their services with this stuff? How is advertising going to work? And more than likely, that's going to be more nefarious than people realize. Will they be broadcasting ads right to our brains? I mean, we should talk about that. But a few more questions we should ask. How easy is it going to be for a rogue actor, acting independently, or foreign foes, to, hack into medical databases and gain access to body implants? And these are just basic questions off the top of my head. We aren't even really getting into the ethical and moral side of all of this. With the way things are going, I see humanity eventually, whenever that convergence point happens. Well, it wouldn't surprise me if humanity breaks off into two species, two civilizations. And a channel favorite of ours, Yuval Harari, actually talked about this a little bit. A breakaway civilization.
A small elite that pushes things in its own interests, even if it doesn't benefit the vast majority of the population. This has happened so many times previously in history, and it's probably going to happen again. One of the biggest dangers to the planet today is this technological utopia, because probably for the elite it will work. If bad comes to worst, and when the flood comes, the scientists will build a Noah's Ark for the elite, leaving the rest to drown, the rest of the people and then the rest of the ecosystem. But they are likely to be able to construct this technological Noah's Ark, which is probably what much of the elite is counting on.
And when Klaus Schwab bragged about how the Davos crowd is shaping the future, right now, they claim that they are shaping the future. And in a sense, he's not wrong. But we can also shape the future. And it begins with asking these really big questions. What kind of future do you want? And we should ask ourselves that because, look, if we combine all the different topics that we discuss on this channel, going over their grand plans, well, what they are selling isn't a future I want. And if I had to guess, you have reservations as well.
Nobody will be safe if not everybody is vaccinated.
It changes you if you take a genetic editing. It's you who are changed.
It's an integration of those spheres. Just think of senses planted into our brains. The opportunities are immense.
To the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, the COVID-19 crisis would be seen as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack.
CHIPS Act, because it's an important step to create the physical brain
for digitalization. So people assume we are just going back to the good old world which we had, and everything will be normal again. This is, let's say, fiction. It will not happen. The cut which we have now is much too strong in order not to leave traces. The effect will be much similar to World War.
We need our brains, but maybe a little bit in a different way.
We must continue to fight.
This global reset is necessary.
We need a great reset. Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight the virus, but to shape the system and to shape our global destiny.
But anyway, let's move on from those terrible things to other terrible things, and let's talk about global uprisings in Peru. So, protests against the new government of Peru grew this weekend across the country's interior, with protests calling for a national strike, and of course the resignation of World Economic Forum puppet Dina Boluarte. But we'll get into that. Let's try to get some background information real quick. So, Peru's president, Castillo, was removed from office after attempting to dissolve Congress. And he was trying to dissolve Congress because he said that, that Congress was overstepping their power by trying to impeach him. However, they ignored his announcement and lawmakers voted 101-6 to remove him from office. And then they named Vice President Dina Boluarte, a Klaus Schwab devotee, as the interim leader. Now, I do my best, but I'm not entirely sure what the truth is in this situation, so if anyone can enlighten me, please do. But I say that to say this: let's try to catch up on what's going on. So, Castillo had previously survived 2 other impeachment attempts. He and his family are being investigated for allegedly taking bribes in exchange for government contracts. Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. President Castillo's sister-in-law was put in jail back in August as part of the investigations, and Castillo, who denies any wrongdoing, faces 5 more criminal cases. Now let's try to get a little bit more background. So, Peru's had a lot of issues. So, flashback, Peru's Congress has been dissolved before, most recently in 2019 by President Martin Vizcarra, who was also eventually removed from office. So, the legislature of Peru was dissolved in April 1992 in an act infamously known as the Self-Coup d'etat. So, after that, an individual named Alberto Fujimori went on to entrench himself in power, staying until 2000 while his government carried out mass killings, for which he is now serving a life sentence. So as you can see on the screen, we have more videos of their protests. And yeah, the people of Peru do not seem pleased. You see, the individual they installed as the replacement is a Klaus Schwab devotee. They are all in on Agenda 2030, the Great Reset, technocracy, and all-out control. She's all in on global corporatism.
Civil han bajado en marcha desde el puente de Azuaco y acaban de llegar a la plaza de armas de Arequipa.
Nosotros, el pueblo, se declara en insurgencia y el día de hoy, a pesar que existe.
And as a result of the chaos, there are now major roadblocks across Peru. The scale of the protests continued to grow despite 7 people, mostly underage, being killed by police. They are saying, and I quote, "The coup government greatly underestimated that people would fight back and defend Castillo." So as a result of all of this, the government in charge right now declared a state of emergency for 30 days, which would allow soldiers to assist police in maintaining quote-unquote public security. End of quote. Now, as I said, look, I'm not trying to fool anybody. I'm not informed enough on Peruvian politics to fully understand the situation. However, corruption does seem to be the standard. But what I do know is that this is reminiscent of what happened in Sri Lanka. Yes, of course, as we know, they replaced their leaders with World Economic Forum members and continued on with their plans. Or really, a better example might be Brazil. Because as we know, Lula da Silva is a Washington, D.C. acolyte and is also all in with Herr Klaus Schwab. But people are still protesting in Brazil as well. And I quote, "Millions believe that their nation is in the process of being stolen. They refuse to accept that a criminal found guilty of corruption was elected by the majority." Day 42 of protests was marked on December 12th, and Lula da Silva, the World Economic Forum choice, took office that same day.
Conhecemos o caminho maldito, rasgar a Constituição, garrotear a liberdade, mandar os patriotas para a cadeia. Promulgamos o Estatuto do Homem, da Liberdade, da Democracia, bradamos por imposição de sua honra. Temos ódio à ditadura, ódio e nojo.
Yes, lots of crazy things happening in the world, and I'll stand with each of them against this global corruption. However, let's finish up this video with a few more crazy stories. So the border of China and India has been contested for a long time, with various clashes here and there. There have been a few fighter fights over the years, a few people being killed, but at this point, I don't know, are they just bored and want to do some fighting? Because India and China are now fighting each other with batons and sticks. So let's watch this for a moment. So yeah, I don't know, that's pretty crazy, right? Anyway, to finish up, I just want to make one more point. Now, just like all of you, I've seen a lot of politicians really pushing for government censorship. You know, as in most cases these days, there are just too many examples to list. However, the one that got me thinking about this, though, was from Adam Schiff. Yes, Adam Schiff. Well, he says, and I quote, "After inciting a violent insurrection, Donald Trump was suspended from Facebook. The suspension is set to expire in just 24 days, despite the fact that he's more unhinged and dangerous than ever. Senator Whitehouse and I are calling on Meta to keep Trump offline for good." End of quote. And, you know, all of these unhinged politicians must really believe the adage, history is written by the winners. And, well, they think they won. They are grasping onto this with everything they have. When people look back, they'll have a distorted view of what really happened, a distorted view of reality. This allows them to remain in good light. History is written by the winners, and yes, they think they won. However, unfortunately for them, that's no longer the case. This digital age is a double-edged sword for them. While we all do have new obstacles to face, such as dealing with power-mad sociopaths like this and their censorship, the digital communication age has led to a revitalized information age. It has allowed people to see the truth, finally, when before it was much easier to control the flow of information. This is exactly why they're hell-bent on censorship. On top of trying to maintain power, they are trying to have some semblance of control over what the history books say about them. And okay, my point is that when freedom wins out, and it will, their legacies are going to be marred by authoritarianism. They'll be remembered for their lust of power. Their legacies are going to be met with reminders of their overt hatred of constitutional rights, human rights, and free expression. History is not going to look back on these people kindly. From all of their lies, their kangaroo courts, their subversion of the nation, turning us into a banana republic, their subversion of the courts, their subversion of the law itself. I mean, for God's sake, their use of intel agencies as their personal Gestapo, their lies, their collusion with the media. All of it is going to be remembered. And in the end, the truth wins. So for our part, I don't know, I guess we'll try to make sure people remember them for who they are. Corrupt and power-mad politicians. And really, when you think about it, the dustbin of history is littered with people like them. Anyway, once again, this is HelioWave. If you like the content, like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video if you want to. If you're in a position to, consider subscribing on Locals or Subscribestar. Yes, as always, make sure you disobey those true fascistas. And of course, I do hope you have a good night.